Welcome in to the Locked On Packers Squad Show. I am your host. My name is Brandon Sneide. The extensions are official. Brian Gutekunst, Matt LaFleur here to stay, but that should not exclude them from entering 2026 on the hot seat.
I'm Peter Bukowski, host of Locked On Packers here in San Francisco, and I got a chance to talk to Evan Williams about this team finding a way to close. He also had some things to say about Mr. Ben Johnson. I want to talk about that too today.
Hey, this is Jags. Is it really going to be a Super Bowl?
Go Pack Go! It's the Packers Squad. Everything Green Bay Packers every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from Titletown. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. From the frozen tundra with all the cheeseheads, the Packers Squad Show starts now.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you find podcasts, you will certainly find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for the fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. As always, thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen each and every single day. Tonight's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. It is the last call for football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. The crew is back together. Lots to get to on the program tonight. The Packers making some defensive additions to their coaching staff. Still waiting on a few offensive spots to get filled. We'll break all of that down. Who enters the hot seat next season? Is it Brian Gutekunst? Is it Matt LaFleur? Is it both of them? We'll debate that. And is this Super Bowl just lacking a little bit of luster? We'll dive into that debate. But we want to begin with our guy, Peter Bukowski. Boots on the ground in Santa Clara at Super Bowl 60. The Seahawks, the New England Patriots. Peter, you had a fantastic tease because I cannot wait to hear what Evan Williams had to tell you today in regards to this team and most notably to Ben Johnson. So I'll let you take the floor. How is Super Bowl week at Radio Row handling down there in Santa Clara? How's it going down there?
I will say people are not super pumped for the game. Like you guys are not the only one who are like, is this is this not so Super Bowl? Like people are like, because I think part of that is they think Seattle is just going to rip apart the Patriots. And I think that's probably fair. Like I'm probably going to take an alt line bet on this game. And I'm going to get like Seahawks 13.5 because I don't think the Patriots are in near the same class as the Seahawks. But that means there's lots of other fun stuff to talk about. And like the coaching carousel has been a big topic of conversation among people that I've talked to. I ran into a lot of Bears folks down here who always have something to say. Adam Rank.
I'm sure they had tons to say to you as well.
Yeah, well, they always, but look, I have tons to say too. And so that's part of the fun here. But without preempting too much of the Evan Williams stuff, which is going to be out as part of our, what's today, Tuesday, our Wednesday show, there is, I think, and this was interesting. As much as they liked Jeff Hafley, I think Evan Williams relayed to me an excitement about playing a different style of defense, about getting a little bit more into disguise and malleability and having Javon Bullard and Evan Williams and Xavier McKinney all on the field at the same time. And hey, can all of a sudden, can you show something and then be somewhere else, be something else. So you're creating more pre and post snap disguise with all of that stuff. And he seemed to be genuinely energized by this change, even if I think they like Jeff Hafley, like I really do, but I think that they see a different thing out there for the Packers. And I'll also add this, guys, this team absolutely believed that they should have been playing this week. Absolutely believed that. But they're going to be fueled by what happened against Chicago. That was something we talked a lot about. That is one of those things. And Coach, I wanted to ask you about this. We have not really talked about this since the game, right? You have the game that you should have won, right? That even with Micah Parsons and Tucker Kraft, you should have won the game.
Yeah.
But it would be human. It would be natural. It would be totally rational for you to say, man, if we'd have just had our guys, And I know you're going to say, look, it's a war of attrition and everyone's got injuries and all those things. But like, coach, it's a natural thing to say, this really, like, next year, all we need to be is a little healthier and we can do this.
Yeah. Well, the health deal, and you're right, Peter, you've been with me for too many weeks on this deal. It is a league of attrition. You just go ahead and take a look at the Denver game, right? Losing their quarterback, and what would it look different if Bo Nix would have been playing in that deal? But it does matter, and you do have to stay healthy. But if you just go back and seeing where the Packers were really, really playing well, what was back probably like the Denver game, right? It's like, man, these guys are playing really good. They're every bit as good as anybody else in this league to go win this thing this Sunday.
Well, that's what makes this sort of frustrating, even when you don't have guys like Micah Parsons and Tucker Kraft, because that even that moment against the Chicago Bears, you should, and 4 games before that where the Packers lose and they hadn't win a game after Micah got injured, that you felt like they should have been in. Peter, your vibe amongst other fans there, do they know they got away maybe this year? Maybe it's Bears fans, maybe it's somebody else, that if the Packers were just a little bit healthier, like things probably would have shaken out a little bit differently? Or is that confidence, you can stick with the Chicago side, like where they're like, we're here and we're not going anywhere and we have the quarterback and we've got things figured out? Or is it kind of like one of those things where they're like, yeah, it took 2 miracle wins for us to get out of there?
Look, Bears fans are not going to admit this on social media. They're not going to admit this on their podcasts. But I talked to a couple of Bears content creators who were sort of like, that was nonsense. Like they know. And I think Bears fans famously will talk themselves into everything in the offseason. They are the most delusional fan base in sports. And in a lot of ways, I respect that about them. In some ways, I kind of wish some Packer fans would be a little bit more on board with someone like Jordan Love or someone like Matt LaFleur. I know, Brandon, you're not going to go with me on that one. The second one, at least. But they kind of know that they caught lightning in a bottle. And that's just what, that's just being honest. Like that's what it was. And that doesn't mean it's any less great. Like, think about this, guys. Brandon, in our waking lives, there has not been a great Bears moment against the Packers. Really. There hasn't.
Correct.
And they now have 2. And they happened a month apart. That is a fundamental reimagining of what this rivalry has been. And I think that's great. I really do think that's great. And like, Ben Johnson was being a jerk, right? He's being a jerk, but I don't have a problem with it. And both of those things can be true. Like, he was intentionally being a jerk, and that's fine. Like, that's the game. That's the rivalry. And I've said this before and I'll say it again, Coach. I think it's time. The Bears are now dangerous enough that you have to meet that energy, because they hate the Packers in a way that the Packers have not hated the Bears in a really, really long time. And I'm not saying that's the difference between winning and losing, but it is an energy that you have to match for 60 minutes. And I don't know if they did in the playoff game. I think part of it was, there's that human part of your brain where it's like, this is how this was supposed to go when it's 21-3. What was the halftime score? And then you tamp down a little bit. There was that natural inclination to just pull back a little bit, and they have to stop that. That has to be a thing of the past for this team. They have to play with that edge every week. And Brandon, tell me, this is something that you and I have talked about. The playoff game to start the playoffs for Seattle, they beat the brakes off the 49ers.
Yep.
I don't think the 2024 team was better than the 2025 team. But did the 2025 team beat the brakes off anybody? No. But the 2024 team did. So where was that? Where is the top? Where is the peak level of usually, Coach, in a season, you stumble into a game where every call you make works and your guys are locked in and you score 35 points and the other team, they just trip over themselves the whole game and it's 35-13 and you feel great about it. The Packers didn't have one of those this year.
I think, maybe Minnesota game at Green Bay in November. I guess,
but even that should have been 45-0
Yeah, but you're right. Yeah. I suppose I felt like, Peter, not to
they beat the crap out of that Vikings team, but
Dallas should have been. And I don't know what happened in that game. Like, there's a lot of things that happened and transpired in that game, but that felt like a game that they could have. I will go to the Pittsburgh game. I know they were not leading in the fourth quarter, but on the road, Sunday Night Football, an emotional game. I felt like that second half was all Green Bay, and they turned it up, obviously, and they won by 10 points. But I guess to your point, that's a valid point.
The thing interesting about the Chicago and Green Bay, it is a rivalry again. Because a rivalry usually is like you win, you lose, you win, you lose. But there's been so many years where Chicago didn't. I don't remember many times where when I was in Green Bay that we lost to the Chicago Bears. And it was still an important game, and it's still a rivalry game. But it's always like, yeah, they're okay. Just like the Lions were just like, they're okay. I mean, but that was like, things change, right? I mean, the worm turns and things change and
things might be changing faster for the Lions than the Lions fans want to admit too, because
you're right. You're right.
Coach, I've never asked you this, but it's just occurring to me. Dan Campbell, after they lost to the 49ers in the NFC Championship game at home, they blew that game in what Brandon Sneide would call very Matt LaFleurian fashion. And Dan Campbell said to the locker room, we may never get back here again. Is that something that you would tell your team if that in a situation like that? Because that just seems like, I don't know, man. Like that's honest to a fault to me, but I've never been in a locker room leading, a group of 53 NFL players.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, sometimes at the end of the game, your emotions get the better of you. That's why you need like a cooling off period before you go to the media room. They give you a little bit of time. But the thing is, it is so difficult, guys, to get to where both these teams are. It's hard as hell. I mean, the league is so damn competitive. We say it every week. You're eligible for an ass kicking every Sunday. I don't care who you are, who you've got playing for you, who's hurt, who's not hurt. But if you don't come with your A game every week, you have a chance to really get your ass beat.
Coach, you will be happy to know off camera after the interview, I told Evan Williams about your saying. He laughed and he said, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So I told him about that. He loved it. He loved it.
Yeah, I hope hopefully they coin it and they start using it in Green Bay.
Man, they need it. They need it.
Yeah.
What about his thoughts on Ben Johnson? Maybe I missed that. I don't know if you got into that.
I didn't get into it. What I said was, do the Packers need a little bit of that FU edge? The F the Packers in the locker room and all that stuff. And Evan was like, well, I think I play with that edge.
Yep.
But I also believe in sportsmanship and shaking someone's hand. And like, that was just a little shot across the bow. And he even caught himself. He was like, all right. And he laughed and he tried to like catch himself again, but it was an honest moment. Like the Packers did not like that. They did not like that. And he finished the interview by saying he thinks this team is going to come back next year pissed off. And I asked him, I said, does it hurt that you can't just get it right? You can't just they're experientially learning. That's what my dad would say. He always said I was an experiential learner. I had to fail to understand certain things. And that's life, coach, right? In the NFL too.
Yeah.
You got to fail. You got to fail. You got to fail until you don't. Yeah. And there's that saying that life is just failing, learning, and then you die.
Yeah. If you want to
and it sucks that they have to, that you want to fail forward. And, there are some coaches and GMs in the NFL that continue to do that, but that's a horse of a different color. But I think that they're certainly sick of the failure part, and they're sick of the pain part. And you want them to come back pissed off. I want this team to take on the mentality of Micah Parsons. I loved what Micah Parsons said in the postmortem, the locker room stuff after that. Like, if you think you're in good enough condition, run more. If you think you're training enough, train more.
Calling people out without calling people out.
Rashawn Gary, what that diatribe was specifically about Rashawn Gary. Brandon, I don't want to preempt too much of this, but Coach, there's a lot of questions about the future of Rashawn Gary moving forward here. Is there a point with a player that you see as a core player who's Rashawn Gary's a good player. He's not worth the $28 million that he's going to cost the Packers this year.
Yeah.
Is there a point at which someone's effort and conditioning is just like, you just can't have it? Like you can't be a part of this locker room anymore.
Yeah, the thing is, you got to be able to produce, especially the money guys, right? Remember I talked about the money guys control your locker room?
Yeah.
And I guarantee, the thing is, it may be said behind closed doors, he just did not play well. We talked about where's Waldo sometimes with that guy. Where is he? We haven't.
Well, it wasn't even it's the hustle too, Coach. Like he's jogging. Yeah. Like,
remember watching it.
You can't have that. You just can't have that.
What's this guy, right? And the thing is, they're paying you, and obviously the Packers thought that he was worth that kind of money, but he didn't produce like that kind of money at all this year.
He was when they signed him, and the Packers traditionally have been really good at identifying the guys that are worth signing. This has just unequivocally not been a good with the big money contracts, especially. They're really good at doing this, and this was just a miss, I think.
And for so many years, Packers, they always wanted to build through the draft. I think that's still true for them.
Yeah.
And that goes way, way back to Ron Wolf.
Yeah,
but,
of course.
But developing your players, and a lot of times the kid would get into the second, third year. They wouldn't even let him get into the fourth, fifth year. If they thought that he was a player, they'd sign him to an early. They'd renew his contract rather than wait for the end.
Coach, I want to go real quick back off of the bulletin board material there with Ben Johnson in the locker room. Like fans, myself, and we get on social media and we pump up the breaks of what's going on between this team and that team and this coach and this player, and obviously it's Ben Johnson and it's Matt LaFleur. How does a locker room as a team go through that? Is the coach going up there and going through what player from the other team said or what the coach from the other team said? Is that a players only thing where they're discussing it and they're handling it? Your leaders on your team are stepping up and speaking up to the other players before the game. How do those, and obviously we're months away from the Packers and Bears, and it wouldn't surprise me if it's the week 1 matchup for the NFL outside of whoever wins the Super Bowl. But how is that handled in a locker room in an NFL building like what we're seeing now with Ben Johnson and Matt LaFleur?
I might be the only guy on here that really knows what the bulletin board material looks like. They used to have like paper articles right from the Milwaukee Journal, and we'd have we were playing Chicago Bears that week, and we'd have the Chicago Tribune and cut out and up on a bulletin board deal, and so everyone's saying like, hey, how about this? This is what they're saying. But I think that's really going to put an edge back on. Peter, you mentioned before. I think it's going to put us edge back on the Packers when they play the Bears, right? I mean, you failed. I think so too, and it needs to be that way. I think sometimes you get complacent, blowing that lead that they did that last game. Unbelievable how that could happen, right? I mean, I even thought like going in at halftime. I go, well, this thing's done. I go, let's just second half. Let's just go tell your team, hey guys, we got another 30 minutes of football, and we're moving on, and that never happened. But all those players,
it happened with the Lions though. Then like it flips, right? And all of a sudden you got to take the Lions a little bit more seriously.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it was like 2 years, and this year there's no question there was an intensity gap week 1 between what the Packers brought to that game and what the Lions brought to that game. There's just no question, and I think we saw it again in the game in the second half of the season. Like the Packers, I know I thought, and we talked about it on the show, the Packers I thought were just a better team than Detroit this year. But that was Matt LaFleur going forward on 4th down and dialing up shot plays. And like that was the game that I felt like changed their season, where all of a sudden it's like he flipped the switch to we're going to throw the ball all over the yard and do this and be aggressive in these moments. And that felt like a paradigm shift back to the way that we're used to seeing. Not that they're not a dangerous team, but that the Packers sort of regained control. And I think that they need that same sort of attitude shift where it's like, okay, Bears week is a serious week. You have to take that seriously. It has to be a real thing. And you have to meet that moment. You have to fight fire with fire because the Bears are going to show up with that fire.
Yep.
No doubt about it.
Yep. When the thing is, half the battle is thinking that you are going to win. A lot of times it goes, well, we'll play hard. The Bears, right? I'm just talking about the Bears. Well, we'll play hard, and we got them and all that. And all of a sudden now that's flipped, right? And they're going like, yeah, we can beat them, and we have, And I think it's going to make a big difference as this rivalry goes forward, especially now like you guys F the Packers. Yeah, I would take that personal.
Yeah.
The Packers will face the Bears with a slew of new coaching names. We'll dive in to what seems to be a theme in Green Bay. We'll dive into those details on Locked On Packers right after this. Tonight's Locked On Packers Squad Show is brought to you by Gusto. Let's be real. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in to take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you all in one place without the hassle or the hidden fees. Unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price, which means no surprise charges for you at the end of the month. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/lockedonnfl and get 3 months free. That's right, 3 months free when you run your first payroll. One more time, that's gusto.com/lockedonnfl. Today's Locked On Packers Squad Show is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special just-in-time offer for the biggest game of the year. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from the kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, this season is officially over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you for making Locked On Packers your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Peter, we have not been together yet since the Green Bay Packers announced the hiring of Jonathan Gannon. You host the Daily Show, which all Packer fans should be subscribing to on YouTube and wherever you get audio podcasts, as well as the wonderful squad show we're doing this evening. I wanted to gather your thoughts on Jonathan Gannon. Did you talk to Evan Williams possibly about what Jonathan Gannon is going to bring? I know you talked about the disguise and the excitement that comes with that, with his defense, but your thoughts, your initial thoughts when you saw Jonathan Gannon being hired prior to the Packers even chatting a second time, because they interviewed him in 2021 with former Wisconsin coach Jim Leonhard. What did you think of the Packers going out and getting Jonathan Gannon?
It was a hire that, if you'd have asked me a week before, I would have been, okay, I guess this is what they're going to do. But I got the chance to talk to some people who know him. I got a chance to talk to some people that know him as a coach and know what he's about. And they raved about him. And not just raved about the player, the coach, raved about the guy. And I do think that stuff matters, Coach. We talked about that in the process of trying to find the right fit. You're going to spend 70 hours a week with that guy. Yeah. You got to like being in the room with him. But that 2022 Eagles season, they were, if you look at the advanced numbers, Coach, and I do like to look at the advanced numbers, you know that. If you look at adjusting for schedule, their passing defense was by far the best in the NFL. And the gap between them and the Bills at 2 was the same as the Bills. And I don't forget who exactly, at 18. They made the second best passing defense in the NFL look like a below average defense. That's how much better they were than everybody else. And the year after, with essentially the same team plus Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith, they were 30th or 31st. And so that tells you that the coaching matters. We know this. You can't play Vic Fangio karaoke. You just can't. It's like, how many guys from the Mike Holmgren staff went out and tried to be Mike Holmgren? Well, you're not Mike Holmgren, right? Like, you can't just play Mike Holmgren karaoke. And so the actual guy in the room matters. And the thing that came up over and over with him was detail. And that was the thing that Evan Williams, going back to when he was a rookie and he would come on Locked On Packers, he would talk about, we got to be on our details. And he's one of those guys that he's always studying film. He's on his details, always. And this is a team that, I think, offensively and defensively, it's a young team, but that excuse is over, Coach. Like, there's no, we're a young team anymore. I know they're the youngest team in the NFL for the third year in a row. It's done. You've got veterans once you're a third year player, you're a veteran. Once it's Halloween and you're a rookie, you're a veteran. You have to be. That's just the nature of the league. And so I think he will bring in, not that Jeff Hafley was not a detailed coach per se, but that is something that is really, really important to Jonathan Gannon. And it has to be with the style of defense that he wants to play, because you're going to play more quarters. It's more too high, and everyone has to be in the right. Not everyone always has to be in the right spots, right? But it is the kind of thing where week to week, he is going to be on these guys about all the little things. And that's the difference between winning and losing. They had a handful of coverage busts in the fourth quarter against the Bears, 4th and 8. They blow the coverage. Like the touchdown at the end, they blow the coverage.
Yep.
In the second game against the Bears, Keyshawn Nixon blows the coverage. And you can't have those. You can't have those things. And so there was someone who was an Eagles, worked with the Eagles, and they said that defense in 2022 was the most disciplined quarters defense in the NFL. Well, everyone was playing quarters then. Everyone wanted to be Vic Fangio then. And so that is pretty high praise that's what they were in that moment. And so if you can bring that with a talent level on this defense, I think this defense is really talented. And they did not live up to that talent this year. He brings that detailed approach that I think, like, not that you can just roll the ball out and play, but it makes it easier to just roll the ball out and play when you have the talent that the Packers do, if everyone's consistently in the right spots. If you can be in the right spots, everyone's good enough in the NFL, coach. This is to your point about you're eligible every Sunday. Mm-hmm. Well, if you don't play with detail, you're going to get your ass kicked. And so if you maximize your detail, you're probably going to kick someone else's ass. And that's what he brings to this defense. And by the way, we'll get to it, but I love the Bobby Babich hiring as well.
Yeah, let's get right into it, because he interviewed for the Packers DC job a couple of years ago. He was Buffalo's defensive coordinator the last few years, since he's been there since 2017. They elevated him in 2024, but I think that's a sneaky hire, Peter. Maybe it's a little bit of the homer and bias to me, but I think that's a sneaky hire where we're going to look back and be like, wow, how did maybe he's only here for a year or two, because it's going to be another Jeff Hafley situation where Bobby Babich is getting picked off for somebody else's staff. But Micah Hyde, Packer fans will be familiar with him, raved about Bobby Babich and the work he did in Buffalo. I think that is a very, very great hire for the Green Bay Packers.
Come coach corners in Green Bay, Micah. No,
can you still play?
Yeah, well, might be another question. That defense, like we talked about the talent on the Packers, that Bills defense not that talented. It really wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
But they played disciplined and they found ways to make it work. They played more dime defense than the Packers did. Jonathan Gannon played more dime defense. They played more 3 safety looks. And something we talked about with Cody Alexander last week from Match Quarters, and he's he comes from the Art Briles, Dave Aranda, Baylor college world. There are going to be opportunities to get 3 safeties on the field. They're going to play a lot where it's like Javon Bullard is going to be your de facto will linebacker. Now you need some defensive tackles. You're going to need a real nose tackle to make this defense work, I think. But you're going to see more of the best players on the field at once. Javon Bullard, like objectively a better player than Tyron Hopper or Isaiah McDuffie. You have to find a way to make that work. And I think those are 2 guys who have shown they're willing to be adaptable, to be malleable. And every coach says that we want to be adaptable, right, coach? Every coach says we're gonna fit this to our players. But what do you sort of resort to when something's not working? You resort to what you know. And I think that this is a defensive staff now that has really proven that they will be adaptive to their players and they'll make this all work. Teron Johnson in Buffalo was a huge part of what that defense does. Budda Baker in Arizona, a huge part of what that defense does. And look at how the Eagles defense took off when Cooper DeJean got there in Philadelphia, playing a similar style to the one that Jonathan Gannon played while he was there, coached while he was there. I think Javon Bullard is going to be the guy that everyone points to and say, he's going to make this defense work in 2026. And I can't wait to see it because I think he's a hell of a player. I thought he took a real step forward this year.
Yeah. I tell you, I think, I was reading some stuff about Ganon and back in 22. Well, how many sacks they have?
70. Yeah.
70.
That's crazy. And they had like 4 guys with double digit sacks. When you're getting that kind of pressure on that, you can go ahead and play quarters covers behind it. But if you're not, you better start bringing a
and you got to get pressure with 4, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously they did, right? Back then. And I saw that LaFleur was singing his praises about the disguise and showing different things and giving the quarterback a vanilla look. I mean, it's the coverage is never what you think it is. It's going to change.
And the great example of that is against Arizona, that Tucker Kraft's corner route on 4th down that the Packers got to seal the game. They I don't know if Jordan Love made the wrong check or what, but they had a play called that they could check depending on if it was man or zone, and Love got fooled. They fooled Love on that last play, and luckily they had the perfect call that was going to work no matter the coverage. But like that's a great example. Like in a high leverage situation, if you fool the quarterback in a play like that, it takes a Jordan Love level player, it takes a Tucker Kraft level player to still make that work. And I think that's the kind of advantage that Gannon is going to help bring them. You're ahead of the game if you're able to disguise and you're behind the game, if you're not, because everyone is doing. Watch Seattle. You kind of never know what they're going to do, even though they do the same three things. So if you look at the Shanahan entropy, I don't want to get too bogged down in the statistics, but like last year, Arizona was the least predictable defense in the NFL. So they played basically an equal amount of cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, and cover 4. So when that's the case, and you're constantly showing a too high shell, and you don't know based on the shell what they're in, like that's a really difficult place for a quarterback to be.
Yeah. And you saw this was in vogue. Packers do it quite a bit. And a lot of the other NFL teams do is like short motion out of the backfield with the back.
Right.
Is it man or is it zone? And I think it's really smart. I think that's really good football. And Packers did it a ton this year. And I was wondering, why are they doing that? And I go, well, that kind of makes sense, right? Because if it's man, that linebacker's got to go with that. If it's zone, he's not. So then Love knows and everybody else knows what it is. Is it man or is it zone? So I think that's really good coaching.
Apparently what Ganon will do is they will say, okay, if he's just going to do that short motion, or we think they're just going to do that short motion, you don't go. Let him go all the way out. If he's going to go all the way out and we're a man, then you got to go. But if he's not, try and stay in your spot as long as possible. And especially if they're not going to use cadence, right? Like that's why Aaron Rodgers loves the cadence, because he's going to make you show what you got. And then you're going to check to whatever. That's why they love to bleed the clock. And Jordan Love has brought that in, right? Jordan Love can do that. He can be the field general pre-snap. And that's something he's added to his game over time. He seems so much more comfortable, Coach, making those decisions at the line of scrimmage, getting into the right plays. I mean, the first Bears game, the first 2 touchdowns are on checks. It's check with me, and he's given Christian Watson a little hand signal, a little something. This was always the great Aaron Rodgers one. I love that one. That's controlling the game, and that's what Brian Gutekunst said he wanted to see from Jordan Love this year. When you make quarterbacks have to do that, there aren't that many quarterbacks, Coach, left in the game who can do that. Most of the offenses have gotten so watered down, they're so vanilla that the scheme is doing all the work. And if you can trick the quarterback, and he's like, okay, I think I've got zone here, he's just thrown to a spot. And if someone's there, oh no, like, oh crap. And I think you're going to see more turnovers as a result, and you're going to see more, I'm going to hold the ball. And that's when Micah Parsons is coming to introduce himself to your quarterback.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that Jeff wanted to preach is the turnovers. And that's so big in winning and losing football games, but they didn't have a lot of turnovers this year. No. And
if they would just catch the ball, Coach.
Yeah, I know, but you know why they are there.
Yeah.
Peter, what does success look like in year one under Jonathan Gannon? Now, obviously, I think all of us would be in agreement that the Packers healthy are playing. We already talked about it, probably playing this weekend, or at least in the NFC Championship game. And I would say that going into 2026, the aspirations for a Super Bowl appearance are going to be at the very top of most Packer fans' list. But this is year one under Jonathan Gannon. It's a somewhat new system for the Packers defense. We know you guys have just went over, the success he's had elsewhere in Philly. I would even say for what he had in Arizona was pretty darn good. But what, Peter, is a good measure of success for Jonathan Gannon in year one as the Packers DC?
I think with the talent that they have, you have to at least match what Jeff Hafley gave you at his best. And in 2024, this was a top 10 defense. They're more talented now today than they were in 2024. So success is a top 10 defense. And you have to have, in the big games, you have to play well. And that's I loved what Matt LaFleur said leading up to the Bears game. It doesn't matter how good a game plan you have. It doesn't matter how prepared you think you are. Your best players have to play well to win those games. And, it wasn't like we saw Jordan Love lay an egg against the Bears. We didn't see Josh Jacobs lay an egg. I think part of what happened was they ran out of their best players. And it's hard for your best players to make plays when your best players are on crutches on the sidelines. And so, like, being healthy, yeah. But then you have to be able to make chicken salad out of chicken, whatever you got, right? And so I think Jonathan Gannon, we saw that last year. They were a top half defense in the first 10 weeks. And then Budda Baker gets hurt and Josh Sweat, and the guys are in and out of the lineups, and they're having to play guys out of position. And they try to do stuff, but at a certain point, you reach critical mass with a team that wasn't that talented already. This team can handle some injuries. They have the flexibility. I think they need to add some depth at corner, and they need some defensive line help. But this team right now is good enough to go be a top 10 defense. So show me that.
Coach, how important is it? And there's a theme I want to get to with this coaching staff in a minute, but how important is it, Coach, Jonathan Ganon, former head coach, obviously was a defensive coordinator in Philly. Bobby Babich, who the Packers hired from Buffalo, he was the defensive coordinator in Buffalo in front of the room. Jonathan Gannon in front of the room. Daniel Bullock's also added to the Packers coaching staff. Per reports, the defensive backs coach in San Francisco for the last 9 years.
I like that one a lot.
I do too. Interviewed for a defensive coordinator job in San Fran in 2004. But coach, all three of those guys have been in charge of either units or parts of sides of the ball defensively. How important is it for the youngest team in the NFL to have guys on one side of the ball who have all been a part of a leadership role with other organizations?
I think it's really important, but just think of this is where I always looked at it, like for my staff or even like Mike McCarthy's staff or that. If you're the coordinator, if you're the offensive coordinator, you are the head coach of the offense. If you're the defensive coordinator, you're the head coach of the defense. And the thing is, you're up in front of that team every single day, and you get a lot of experience. That's why it's good if you're a coordinator getting to go to a head coaching position because you've been in that situation. The only thing about the head coach is you've got to tie all three of those things together. But you're the head coach of your side of the ball, and your voice is really heard a lot. Absolutely.
Well, and Brandon, you didn't even mention the new linebackers coach was the defensive coordinator of Virginia Tech. So you're adding a bunch of guys who have actually done the job. And Matt LaFleur raved about, Jeff Hafley having been a head coach and the value that brings to be able to bounce stuff off. It has to be invaluable, coach, when you've got a passing game coordinator who's been to DC, a linebackers coach who's been to DC, and they have these things to draw. And they were like, oh, well, when we played team Y, we did X against thing Z. And like when you have that Rolodex of things to be able to say, hey, in this moment, I got something for this. Yeah. That is so valuable to any staff.
It is. But here's the thing, too, is like when you're the head coach, you have to have those roles seriously defined for each of those coaches because, hey, I was a head coach. I was a coordinator. The thing is, though, everybody has to know what their job is, right? And it has to be defined because when you get all of those egos in a room, I'm just telling you guys.
You're right.
Because most of those guys are all alpha guys, right? I mean, they've been in front of rooms, they've coordinators, head coaching, and all of a sudden you get all these guys in the same room, and all of a sudden your opinion matters, but your decision making, you might not have the last say like you did.
Going to be a positive, though, I think, for the Green Bay Packers. I think new voices, new faces on that side of the ball are going to be a welcoming sight for the upcoming 2026 season. Peter, I know you're a busy man. Your boots on the ground at Super Bowl 60. Before we say goodbye to you, any plans this week? Is there anybody you're looking to interview? Is there anything you're looking that's coming up on Locked On Packers Daily? Like, give us anything that's coming up for you while you're out there in Santa Clara following up on Super Bowl 60.
Yeah, we actually, TJ Ward, former Denver Bronco, is coming up later in the week. Really excited about that. I know Romeo Dobbs is going to be here tomorrow. I'm trying to make sure we can sneak into his schedule there. Some other players, maybe non-Packers that we're going to work on as well. Talked to Matt Hasselbeck today. We didn't get that on camera, but I had a great time talking to him. I'll tell you this, Coach. I told him I was in the building for we want the ball and we're going to score. And you know what he said? I'd do it again. I'd do it again. And I loved that. I was just like, that's why you went to a Super Bowl. That's why you were a multi-time Pro Bowler, because that's just like, that's alpha behavior to me.
Matt was my quarterback at BC in '97.
No way.
Yeah. He was a good player. He was a really good player.
Sneaky tall guy, Matt Hasselbeck. You kind of don't think about him that way, but he's like, I'm 6'3", and I'm looking up at this guy like he is a big dude.
Yeah. No, he's a good player. Comes from a great football family. The dad played, and I think at Denver. And
his daughter's now. He told me what sport she's playing, but she's playing sports at Stanford now. And I said, did Andrew Luck recruit her because he's wearing the Stanford hat? And he said, yeah, because he is the GM now at Stanford. So, pretty cool to see. No. Andrew Luck is the GM at Stanford, and his daughter got recruited to play. Again, I'm sorry to the Hasselbeck family that I'm blanking on what his daughter's going to play, but yeah,
probably volleyball, because that seems to be the most popular sport.
Taller guy, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So Peter, can you tell what's it like on that row, media row?
It's madness. It is there. This room is basically an airplane hangar. And we are we are ass to ass in here. Like we really are. They've got us packed in here. There's usually like walkways. It's funny because my first Super Bowl was in 2021. So we're still in COVID. You got to be masked up. Tables are socially distanced, and it was in California. So, it was a different level of scrutiny for that kind of stuff. And it is really just gotten bigger and crazier. And now every YouTuber with a camera is here now. They credential everybody. So it is madness. There's people just walking around. Brian Baldinger was just doing an interview behind us. And, you've got former NFL greats. You've got current NFL greats. You've got every media person you could ever think of here. So to be in this room, the energy, the first time I came here and did this, I said, I'm going to be here every year I can be here. I'm going to be here because it is there is a special energy and electricity here for Super Bowl. Whether the Packers here or not, it's hard to even fathom what it would be like if the Packers were here and what that experience would be like. It'd be very different too, because there'd be then practices and media availabilities that I would have to go to. But this still, it's an absolute blast, and fans can be here. So if it is somewhere near you, or you just want an excuse to take a trip, it is a really fun thing. They've got the fan experience. They've got stuff for fans all week. So it is a really fun trip. Just as if there's fans from all, teams that had no shot to be here, have fans here just because it's a fun thing to come be a part of.
What kind of
You can't come to
hours
Radio Row, but there's other stuff to do.
What kind of hours is that? I mean, I think stay open like from certain time to certain time, or
there's people
it's
here
worldwide now.
Yeah, there's here into the wee hours of the night. I mean, there's people from there's people here from South America, there's people here from Asia, there's people here from I ran into Packer fan Annie Agar, who's a Locked On Packers many-time guest, and some people from Ireland came up and wanted to talk to her about football. Like it's just one of those cool things.
Awesome.
This is a global community. You're reminded when you come here for stuff like this.
What a great way to network, huh?
It's been fun. You never know who you're going to run into. And like Adam Rank, who's a Bears fan, someone who I've had on our show. We're going to do a home and home while we're here. So he's coming up on the show this week at some point. He's an Arsenal supporter, and so am I. And so we have that in common. So maybe you find common ground with someone who, previously was an op for you.
Incredible stuff, Peter. Thanks for checking in from Santa Clara in Super Bowl 60. Make sure you subscribe, tune in to the daily Locked On Packers show, catch up on all those interviews that Peter has coming up. Coach and I are going to have some fun debate coming up. We still got you here for about another 20 minutes or so. Another interesting debate as we enter the 2026 season for the Green Bay Packers. They're both extended, right? Matt LaFleur, Brian Gutekunst, they're here to stay. But are they safe? Are their jobs safe? We'll dive into that coming up right after this. Tonight's Locked On Packers squad show is brought to you by TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take your life over this year. TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move about your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local tax expert, start to finish, without the stress or the guesswork. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling all your tax stuff. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just make sure you file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local. Once again, TurboTax.com/local right now to book your appointment today. Thank you for making Locked On Packers your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Coach, it's official. Finally, pen to paper. The Packers announcing Matt LaFleur, Brian Gutekunst, Russ Ball, executive vice president, here to stay in Green Bay for a multi-year extension for all three of them. It's a very easy question, Coach, or maybe it's not a very easy question. Maybe there's multiple layers to this, but the way things ended for the Green Bay Packers in 2025, we had kind of mentioned it a little bit at the beginning of the program. 5 straight losses, 2 of those to the Chicago Bears in very, very, very dramatic fashion. One of those being in a playoff game in the wild card game where you were up 21-3, at halftime and end up losing that game. And the other one going into overtime and the botched onside recovery, Romeo Doubs. Is it crazy, Coach, to say that although they sign those extensions, that their job is not necessarily safe as they enter 2026?
No, I think they're safe. I mean, all of a sudden, which is good though, right? I mean, the thing is, it was very disappointing at the end of the season, losing 5 in a row. I mean, usually that gets you walking papers, right, in jobs. But, obviously that the management felt secure enough for both those guys with Goody and LaFleur to come back and lead this team. And, but they still have to perform. And we talked about this. You can have all the regular season wins that you want, right? Until you start doing stuff in the playoffs, that's where you're measured as a head coach in this league. It's not regular season games. Now, that's important. I know he's had like 70 or 70 some wins with
76,
yep. And that's a lot, guy. I mean, that is a lot. And that's like one of the tops in the whole NFL. But you still have to go ahead and win playoff games because that's when it counts.
Let me ask you this then. If you had to pick, and I don't necessarily think they're on the quote unquote hot seat. And I know we're potentially reaching for content here as we discuss after they just signed extensions on who's entering the hot seat. I think obviously expectations should be high. They probably are high, right? If you're Matt LaFleur, if you're Brian Gutekunst, if you had to pick one, I guess Russ Ball, you can probably take him out of the equation here. The cap guy and the economist for the Packers. If you had to pick one, and if it was Matt LaFleur or Brian Gutekunst, who would you say faces more pressure entering 2026 to perform to the best of their capabilities for their role that they are assigned to?
Wow, that's a great question. That is really quick. Who matters more? Is that the question?
Not necessarily who matters more, because I think they both equally matter the same, right? Goody's got to build the team. Yeah. LaFleur's got to coach the team. He's got to go through the ebbs and the flows of the season. But which one of those guys faces more pressure to excel at their job, at their role that they're assigned? Brian Gutekunst as the general manager, as the draft and develop guy, the free agency guy, the roster construction guy? Or is it Matt LaFleur who faces more pressure, having already kind of have those expectations? You got Micah Parsons, you have Jordan Love, you're going to get Tucker Kraft back, into the rotation, obviously after that ACL injury. So which one of those two guys faces more pressure to exceed in their role that they're assigned to?
I think Matt does, because we've said it even on this show, is like how talented the Packers roster is and the type of players they have there. And that's Goody's responsibility to get the players in the building. And then it's Matt's responsibility to have these guys perform on game day. And so I would say LaFleur's got the bigger, heavier lift.
When you look at this team, Coach, and obviously Brian Gutekunst's a reason you got Jordan Love. He's a reason you go out and acquire Micah Parsons. He's making those moves. And LaFleur is obviously coaching this team. But how much responsibility falls on coaching versus roster construction? Like, at what point is LaFleur doing the best that he can do with what he's given? And on the other side, what more can Goody do in his role? And I know fans will probably be listening to the show. They're watching on YouTube, and we appreciate them. And make sure you subscribe on YouTube if you're not, or audio podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. But how much responsibility falls on coaching versus roster construction?
There's a reason that those guys are tied together at the hip now with this contract, right? I mean, they both, those guys talk every single day, obviously, right? And I just think that he's brought in the right players. I really do. I mean, you just talked about a couple of guys as the stars on this team with Love and with Parsons, and he's brought other guys. He's had some really, really good drafts. And the thing is, if you're that competitive, I know we just talked about the youth of this team for the last 3 years. He is drafting really, really well. Now,
I think so.
And the thing is, that's his job, right, in drafting. But everybody's involved in the draft. All the coaches are involved in it. But Goody's got the last say in it. And I remember those draft meetings or on draft day. It was a blast. But the GM has got really the final say because he's the one that's making the pick.
Yeah, and I know there's people that are going to be eye rolling, this topic and being like, they just signed here. Well, I don't believe any of them should have been fired, Coach, after the debacle that we saw at the end of 2025, as we talked about it, the 5 straight losses. I think Brian Gutekunst is underappreciated amongst Packer fans and, quite frankly, the NFL for what he's been able to do. Everybody wants to point to his misses. I could find every single other GM that has had big, major misses. Howie Roseman out there in Philly, coach, gets all the praise from everybody, from people on social media to the NFL talking heads, nationally and locally. There was a reason they were out shopping, coach, at the trade deadline for Jalen Phillips, right? They needed a pass rusher. Yeah. Jair Alexander was also a trade that they made. It didn't obviously come to fruition because he didn't play in Philly, but they had holes in their roster as well. Every roster, every general manager has those misses. It's what you do when you hit those makes. And if you get Jordan Love right, which Brian Gutekunst caught a ton of flack for when he drafted Jordan Love, he got that pick right. He's nailed, I think, for the most part. This year was a down year. Offensive line has usually been a strength under Brian Gutekunst and a big reason for the success that they've had. And obviously you go out and get a guy like Micah Parsons. He drafted Tucker Kraft. I don't think he really faces any pressure. I think he's kind of safe in the mold of, obviously, he's signing an extension, but what he's been able to do from a roster construction standpoint, I think speaks volumes because of the success that this team had. Matt LaFleur, on the other hand, he's been in Green Bay now, coach, for 7 years. Like, he's going to be going on to his 8th year coaching this team, his 4th year with Jordan Love. Obviously Jordan Love's been in the league longer than that, but his 4th year as the starting quarterback, entering his 4th year as a starting quarterback. What for you? And I know we're getting way ahead of ourselves, and there's a lot of things that happen. The draft's happening, free agency's got to happen. Right. I get all of that. We got OTAs and training camp in between all of this. And we'll get to the Super Bowl coming up here shortly, but obviously that's kind of the aspiration for the Green Bay Packers, right? Get to the Super Bowl, win a Super Bowl. You're not called Title Town for wild card appearances. But if you had to pinpoint what does real success look like in 2026 in order for Matt LaFleur to check the box and say that was a good season, take away winning the Super Bowl, because we all agree that is obviously what it is. What does that look like for Matt LaFleur as the head coach in Green Bay in 2026?
I think that the Packers usually should get into the playoffs. I know we were like the last seed in that deal, but I think getting deep into the playoffs and start making playoff runs, I think is going to be very, very important, because, again, success in Green Bay isn't measured on regular season games, wins and losses. And obviously you have to have wins to get into the playoffs, but he has not advanced like expected in Green Bay. Right. I mean, you can't be losing in the first round of the wild card deal. You just can't do that. And the thing is, it's crazy. 21-3, everybody's thought like, oh, we're going to the next week. And all of a sudden the damn thing fell apart. So that's his responsibility. To get those guys playing a full 60 minutes. But I think success in the season, I'm not going to say, oh, it's Super Bowl or bust. I mean, that's what we all want. And Packer fans and all that. But I think it's advancing deep into the playoffs.
I don't think people realize, coach, just to kind of get off track here a little bit, I don't think people realize, and I'm probably guilty of it as well, and you can only speak on this because you have been in these situations, and you mentioned the amount of championships you won in your coaching career before we got on. I don't think, again, hand up, guilty as well, I don't think, coach, fans realize how hard it is to win a championship at any level.
Yeah.
At any level.
We were talking about that, and just here's the deal. Whoever's out there in the audience listening to this deal, just think of the teams that you played on. How many championships did you win? They're hard. They're really, really hard to win. And I've coached for 42 years, and the only championship I've got was at UW Whitewater back in 1985 when I was a senior in college, and I hadn't even started coaching yet.
Coach, that was before I was even.
I know. I mean, you're just a twinkle in your dad's eye, I would think, but I mean, winning championships are super, super hard, and like what New England did for all those years. I mean, God, that's just phenomenal. Just getting there. I mean,
well, and I think it's skewed, coach, how people look at it, right? Like, people see Tom Brady win in New England 6 times, and then they see him go to Tampa Bay, and then they win there. Like, oh, that's easy. Let's just do it every year. And it's just
that's why he's probably the greatest to ever play the game. I mean, he's unbelievable. But here's another thing too: is like, look at all those teams. Like when Buffalo went 4 years in a row, get to the Super Bowl and didn't win one of them.
Yeah,
right. It's like. Yep. But it's super, super hard. You have to have a lot of things go your way. Do you think if Bo Nix was playing in that game, do you think they'd be playing in the Super Bowl, possibly, right?
Probably only because it didn't really feel like New England could do much offensively in that game, right? And obviously the weather played a bit of a factor in it, but it did feel like Denver had multiple chances to kind of seize the moment. And you only lose by one score. What was that? Was it a 10-3 final? I believe it was. Like if you don't have your starting quarterback, it's a one possession game. Like it's hard for me not to say like they wouldn't have a better chance to win that game with Bo Nix. So but that's the reality of it, right, Coach? Like they were the number one seed in the AFC. Like they at one point had a 10-11 game win streak. The Packers went there and lost as well during that. Like and the littlest thing, he broke his ankle kneeling the football. Like and that took away potentially a Super Bowl appearance for that team.
Isn't
and it's
crazy?
little things.
How the hell does that even happen? Taking a knee and deal. It's like just ending the game and hurting yourself. But here's the thing, the stars got all aligned though, right? I mean,
and we saw it in 2010, Coach, in Green Bay. Yeah, they did everything aligned.
Yep. And the most important thing is what kind of football are you playing at the end of the year? It doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter, but you always look back at the season going, that one really cost us. Right? I don't know which one would that be. Cleveland. I mean, it's like we should have won that one.
Carolina's in there probably.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of those that you shouldn't have lost at all, but they did, and it's more important to play at a high level at the end of the season than it is during because it's a marathon. It's not a sprint in the NFL.
Speaking of Super Bowl 60, just a handful of days away, and I don't know about you guys, but is this one lacking a little bit of luster? Coach and I break it down coming up on Locked On Packers right after this. Tonight's Locked On Packers Squad Show is sponsored by BetterHelp. February can be a lot. Flowers, candy, stuffed animals, and so much talk about relationships. And it honestly can feel like everyone else has it all together in their love life. But here's the truth. Whether you're married, dating, single, or just focusing on you, most people are still figuring it out. And no matter where you are in your romantic journey, therapy can help you find your way. It can help you get clear on what you want, what feels heavy, and how to take some pressure off of yourself. Listen, therapy can help you recognize patterns that might be weighing relationships down. It can help you communicate better, set healthier boundaries, and stop carrying everything alone. BetterHelp has licensed therapists in the U.S., and they do the initial match working for you so you can focus on your goals. And if you want to switch therapists, you can do that at any time. Sign up right now and get 10% off at BetterHelp.com/lockedon. Once again, that's BetterHelp.com/lockedon. Get 10% off. Super Bowl 60 is upon us. We had Peter Bukowski, boots on the ground in Santa Clara, as the Seattle Seahawks will take on the New England Patriots in a matchup, Coach. The odds at the beginning of the year would tell you would not happen. In New England, 80-1 to get to the Super Bowl at the beginning of the year. Seattle, 60-1 odds at the beginning of the year to get to the Super Bowl. But alas, both of those odds didn't matter because we are now in the matchup with the Seahawks and the Patriots. And you and I had kind of talked about it. You mentioned it at your tease there, Coach. It just is lacking something, and I don't know what, and I can't put my finger on it. Does it feel like the Super Bowl, Coach, or does it feel like it's kind of slipping away from us here?
It feels lackluster to me. I mean, it's a Super Bowl too, so I mean, everybody's going to be watching the damn thing. But what's amazing is that both these guys are first-year head coaches at their spot, right? And to get to the Super Bowl, that's really amazing. And what those guys did with their programs. But the thing is, what are you always used to, right? It's Kansas City for all those years, Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, and the other thing too is like Kansas City. Then you had the Travis Kelce storyline. Then you had Taylor Swift storyline, so that always added a little bit of attention to it, and it was obviously Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback arguably outside of Tom Brady, and obviously you had some other cool storylines. The Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers were part of those games, but I don't know about you, Coach, but this matchup to me, it excites me as a football fan because the defense for both of these teams, like the defense, I do think Seattle will win. We'll give our picks out on Thursday, but spoiler alert, I do believe Seattle will come out victorious. But the way New England plays defense under Mike Vrabel, the way that Seattle plays defense under Mike McDonald, I love when there's two teams, and Seattle's offense is great, right? JSN, Jackson Smith and Jibba, one of the best receivers in football this year. Sam Darnold's story has been incredible. It's hard not to root for a guy like Sam Darnold that's been through the ringer when it comes to the NFL, and Carolina and New York and San Francisco and obviously Minnesota, part of that as well. Like it's hard not to root for him. But when I look at both of these defenses, Coach, I'm like, I look at both of New England and Seattle, and I look at those defenses and I go, they can win because of their defense. Now, what can the offense do is obviously what's going to dictate the outcome, in my opinion, of this game. But when I see a matchup with two really good defenses, the old school Packer fan, the old school football fan in me gets excited, because I think that's the most fun part of the side of the ball. It's got lost in the shuffle because everybody wants to score. Everybody likes the big plays. Everybody likes
what put asses in the seats.
Right. Like, and I get it. It sells, but Coach, and I know you're the offensive guy, I love when defenses are the forefront of a team, and it feels like for both of these teams, that's the case. So it's exciting that it's going to be, see which offense can score more against really, really good defenses.
Yeah. I tell you, I think, talk about at the end of the year, who's playing the best football. I think Seattle, man, I tell you, just what they did with San Francisco in that playoff game. And then the last one, it's just a car wreck. You're watching their defense. They're so physical. And I remember talking to a couple of coaching friends as that game was going on, go, how good are these guys? The Seattle team. And they're playing really, really at a high level. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. How about both these teams are on opposite sides of the country?
I know.
How about that? As far as you could possibly be.
And Seattle obviously making the shorter trek in a division foe, out there in Santa Clara where the San Francisco 49ers prepare. So it will be fun. You and I will break it down on Thursday. We'll have Jacob Westendorf on the program. Peter will be taking in the festivities out there in Santa Clara. Make sure you tune in to the Locked On Packers Daily Show all week long. The stuff that Peter has, make sure you follow him on Twitter at Peter_Bukowski as well, and get caught up on everything that's happening out there at Radio Row. From Wednesday, Coach, really on through Friday is when it really heats up down there at Radio Row. So you heard Peter talk about Romeo Doubs being a guy that's going to be out there. I'm sure we'll see some more Packer fans filter out and maybe speak on it. Obviously, Jonathan Ganon, Matt LaFleur being extended, Brian Gutekunst, and obviously the way that this season ended. So make sure you follow on to the Locked On Packers Daily Show, whether it's audio podcast, whether it's over on YouTube. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. For Coach and for myself, that'll do it for tonight's episode of the Locked On Packers Squad Show. Friendly reminder, wherever you guys get audio podcasts, as I mentioned, we are free and available wherever you guys get audio podcasts, as well as over on YouTube. Make sure you smash that subscribe button. For Coach and for myself, we will sign off for now. We'll be back on Thursday. We'll get caught up on anything else that's happened at Radio Row. Brian Gutekunst, Coach, set for his season-ending press conference on Wednesday. We will break down what Goody has to say, get his thoughts on the way the season ended, get his thoughts on Jordan Love, Micah Parsons, and the Green Bay Packers, and we'll break all of that down, and then we'll give you our Super Bowl picks on Thursday as well. Thanks to each and every one of you for tuning in. Thank you for making Locked On Packers part of your day each and every single day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. And as always, make sure you always stay locked on Packers.